Oppo's latest flagship smartphone, the Find X5 Pro, looks every part the expensive, powerful flagship. There's a 6.5-inch display capable of topping out at 1300 nits of brightness. That all runs at WQHD plus resolution. There's also adaptive frame rates. There's a new neural processing unit that Oppo's built in-house expressly to improve low light performance from the cameras on this phone. There are two 50-megapixel primary camera sensors. There's a new but familiar sounding collaboration with Hasselblad, and there's even, just before all that, just look how shiny and pretty this phone looks. So far this year, Oppo has already announced its own neural processing unit built in-house, Mari Silicon, aimed expressly at improving image signal processing. It's also revealed its intriguing attempts at foldable phones, but no specific flagship, no Find X phones, at least until now. That's all set to change at MWC this week, which is shaping up to be a relatively quiet mobile show. Barring any surprises from the likes of Huawei or Samsung, which both also have their press events set for this week, Oppo could steal all the headlines if the phone is any good. Fortunately, Oppo has provided a Find X5 Pro for me to play with ahead of all those proceedings, so let's dive a little bit deeper. The Find X5 Pro borrows some of the curves you might have seen in the Find X3 from last year, although it's elevated a little bit more. There's now a slight diagonal cut to the camera unit on the back, which means it fits into your hand a little bit better when you're taking photos or capturing video. It also helps the phone stand out a little bit more, well, aside from how incredibly shiny it is. And yes, it seems to be just as shiny in the white and black options. In black, it picks up fingerprints and smudges a little bit too easily for my liking, but at least I'm not afraid of damaging it. The Find X5 Pro features a ceramic shell that takes apparently 168 hours to bake or create. I'm not sure exactly how you describe ceramic production. Yes, the body of this phone is apparently nanometer crystalline ceramics, and that's a very elaborate way of saying it's really tough. It can resist scratches up to 1200 HV, which is a kind of measure of scratching that I've actually never heard of before. For comparison, stainless steel scores around 200 HV, while diamond is around 11,000 HV. It's all just a very technical way of saying this shouldn't get scratched so easily. And on the front, don't worry, there's Gorilla Glass Victus for your safety. I think the Find X5 Pro looks great. It looks different. It might not be as eye-catching or as divisive as the Pixel 6 Pro with its weird Cyclops visor, but it at least looks different to the army of phones with their squarish camera arrays. There's at least some originality here. But that's accompanied by some familiar, reliable specs. It's another phone arriving with Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Generation 1 chip, arguably the most powerful Android chip on devices at the moment. There's also a 5000 mAh battery, which is slightly larger than last year's Oppo phone, and bigger batteries are always welcome. Yeah, no complaints here. So let's move on to those cameras because they are really important for how Oppo is framing this device. Like its last Find X phone, Oppo has chosen to go with two main sensors working in tandem. They're both 50 megapixels, but they have slightly different lens compositions and specifications. So let's break down all these cameras. First up, at the top of the device, there's an ultra-wide camera. This features a freeform lens which should help reduce distortion at the edges of that ultra-wide angle. The camera can apparently capture up to 110 degrees of view. But that also means if you have a group of people, sometimes you might have noticed that people on the outer periphery might have their faces distorted or just generally look a little bit out of shape, literally. This isn't aimed at fixing that, at least a little bit. It also has an f2.2 aperture. So that's one of the primary ones. Let's move on to the second one just below, which actually takes up more space because it features 5-axis optical image stabilization, and that just apparently takes up a lot of space. This one features an f1.7 aperture with a glass and resin combination lens. According to Oppo, using glass in just part of that lens array will improve color accuracy up to 77%, which sounds pretty impressive. And 5-axis optical image stabilization is pretty self-explanatory. This means that it will be able to steady for your own wobbles and just generally improve what you're capturing with the device in person. It should also improve low light performance as well. And despite how much space it takes up, there's also still a telephoto lens as well. A 13 megapixel sensor capable of 2x optical zoom with an f2.4 aperture. There's also a spectral sensor that's been upgraded from 5 to 13 channels. This is another bid by Oppo to improve color accuracy and will improve the white balance modes inside all of the camera apps. On the front, there's a 32 megapixel selfie cam which now uses an RGBW pixel array. This taps into the Mari silicon chip and helps the camera hopefully capture more accurate and more, hopefully, pleasant selfies. The selfie camera will also monitor if you're looking at the device, ensuring that whether you're scrolling or watching something for an extended period, the phone won't magically switch off. So that's half of the hardware story. Oppo debuted the Mari Silicon X MPU chip in this new phone. During my briefing, the company walked through how the chip enables the ability to offer night mode video capture, even at 4K resolution and with HDR turned on. What followed was a barrage of specs and numbers explaining exactly what Oppo's homemade MPU is doing behind the scenes to make this possible. But a lot of it focuses on imaging, better and faster signal processing, and even improved power efficiency, which could be important if you're capturing an awful lot of 4K content. After a few days, I think this is the showcase camera feature, 4K Ultra Night Video, which is exactly what Oppo is calling its take on low light video recording. During the testing I've done so far, it seems to work and help amplify detail in even the dimmest lighting situations, at least so far. But the MPU hasn't translated to 4K video notably better than its competition, and Oppo hasn't announced pricing yet, so all I can really compare it to is the most expensive flagships out there. In this example, I've tried it against the Pixel 6 Pro, and yeah, this Pixel 6 Pro kind of offers a better result. I tried filming last night with both the devices, and Google's capture seemed a little bit more natural and a little less harsh than what Oppo's processing seemed to do to dark environments. Foliage detail was a little too excessively brightened on the Find X5 Pro. To the point of turning grey, it seemed to turn out some of the green, which isn't exactly great colour accuracy. On that note, the Find X5 Pro also kicks off a new collaboration between Oppo and Hasselblad, which isn't quite so new when we've already kind of written about it when discussing OnePlus's latest phones. But for the sake of consistency, let's go over what Hasselblad is adding here, aside from cachet. The phone's Pro mode offers users some Hasselblad seasoned fine-grained controls, which will work pretty much exactly how they work on Hasselblad's own very expensive cameras. That means a big orange shutter button and 3 Hasselblad-approved filters. Now, I can't exactly explain why, and I've often ridiculed filters in the past, but I really like these Hasselblad filters. There's 3 to choose from, and they add some kind of, whatever Oppo is paying to work with Hasselblad, I think it was worth it just for these filters alone. You even get X-Pan mode. This means you can shoot video in 65:24 ratio. I won't let you do the math, don't worry. It's just a very cinematic long aspect ratio. I've got a few clips to show you here. And for reasons I can't explain, I really like this too. Now, with corporate overlap and shared resources, OnePlus and Oppo are more tightly aligned than ever, so it's not hugely surprising to see software overlap like this. Yes, you also get Hasselblad's natural color solution, where the company has tried to replicate the color accuracy of its very expensive cameras into these smartphone sensors. And to be honest, coming from several OnePlus phones in the past, it was actually quite easy for me to get to grips with Oppo's camera units just because there was so much shared DNA, even at this early preview stage. Oppo is at least saving some surprises for its big MWC reveal. Unfortunately, they include pricing and availability. And having said that, it's pretty unlikely you'll be able to find the Find X5 Pro in the US, at least judging from previous devices from the company. And that is unfortunately something you might be hearing a lot of at this year's MWC. We'll be updating our story, which is live now on Engadget.com, with pricing and availability. And for everything else from the big mobile show this year, make sure to check out Engadget.com. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon.